Hi guys, welcome back. I'm gonna continue the celebrations from yesterday for the 50th birthday of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. And it's a very exciting time. Royal Oak is one of my most favorite designs of all time, and not only as a timepiece, quite frankly. As you know, I'm primarily a Rolex guy, but I have a few designs, a few models that I like from other brands. And along with Jaeger LeCoultre Reverso, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak is probably one of them. So we will have a little Chrono 24 browsing session where I talk about some alternatives that are, relatively speaking, within reach. And I will give you two caveats about that before we get too carried away. One is, of course, when I say within reach, I'm speaking relatively, I'm speaking comparatively. After all, we are talking about a model, an entire line of watches that have very limited availability. A lot of the models are very restricted, boutique exclusive. If they're not boutique exclusive, they still come in limited production. Remember again, Audemars Piguet per year produces about 60,000 watches. So we're talking about watches that are very limited, very exclusive, where I had the personal experience of having to wait almost an entire month to schedule an appointment with their boutique in Beverly Hills. And at the end of the day, they end up pushing this code 1159 onto you. So a lot of times they don't really allow you even to get on a wait list for an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. I'm not even talking about the most desirable models like the Jumbo Extra Thin or an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak chronograph. So all of that being said, the second caveat is, of course, again, when we're talking about Royal Oak models within reach, we're also talking about how these would be some of the less desirable models, smaller sized. I'm going to take a look at mostly 36 millimeter models. As you know, the iconic Jumbo is 39 millimeters. But if you know this watch, you also know that it has an interesting wrist presence. It's very eye-catching. It wears bigger than those measurements, than those specifications on paper. The integrated bracelet, the whole integrated design has a lot to do with that. The hand finishing and the contrast of polished and satin surfaces plays another role. Nevertheless, we will be talking about the smaller models who are relatively more affordable compared to the several references of the Royal Oak Jumbo or Extra Thin, 5402, 15202, or the new 16202, which I'm not even sure is being delivered as of yet. And I wanted to share this visual with you before I begin with the whole scouring of Chrono 24. This is the designer's, Gérald Janta's personal Royal Oak Jumbo. It's actually simply a 5402 ST. So the original Jumbo in steel, fitted with an 18-karat gold bezel. So quite unique. Fits the kind of visionary designer that Gerard Jante is, that he would have really a Royal Oak of his own, not entirely steel, not wholly two-tone. The quick story of it is, of course, when they first designed these bezels, the bolts were too supposed to be stainless steel. But when they were testing the models, the prototypes in the water, in the salt water, the steel bolts were actually not proving to be not so stainless. They were getting rusty. They were getting corroded. That was when the idea of replacing them with white gold bolts emerged. And as you know, they take on a certain patina over the years that adds yet another contrasting layer to these designs. So the first model that I will be considering accordingly is the Royal Oak (25-9-20). This is an annual calendar that was produced for quite a limited time, right around the turn of the millennium. It preserves a lot of the elements of the classic design: the integrated bracelet, the blue, midnight blue or cobalt blue dial that is decorated with a particular guilloche pattern. Maybe I'll show how that machine works towards the end of this live stream. But it's very unique. This is, of course, what they call the Grande Tapisserie design, where those waffles are a little bigger than the original Petite Tapisserie design. And I kind of like the asymmetric dial on this. Of course, rather than seconds on the subdial is a month indicator, and you have on the outer track, of course, the date that is shown to you, that is pointed to by a red arrow. And I quite like the contrast of blue and red on this one. Of course, the seconds hand is quote unquote missing. And that was actually, that has always been one of my favorite elements of the original Royal Oak design. I find it to be a very interesting flex indeed, that you would have one of the most robust, reliable mechanical movements inside the thinnest mechanical self-winding movement produced by Lecoutre at the time in 1970 that included a date. And somehow with that movement, you won't even bother showing off the sweeping seconds hand. I think it was a beautiful, beautiful flex. And of course, a sapphire case back, especially on a sports watch at the time, no matter how luxurious and elite, was not really such a widespread thing. So that's how the original Jumbo was, and that continued for some time. And as you see, of course, this is inscribed on the back with the serial number, quantième annuel, the annual calendar. As you can see, the watch is in relatively good condition, seems to be preserving for the most part the original finish. You have the pushers here to adjust the date, uh, and the watch itself looks quite beautiful, I think, and has an original function and has its own aesthetic, which could perhaps help you feel that you are not settling if you actually like this design. And I quite like it. I've been growing more and more fond of asymmetric dial designs lately. So this is a very pleasing aesthetic for me. This is actually the cheapest example on Chrono 24. So don't be fooled by this price necessarily, though I think a lot of times what really affects the price when it comes to these sorts of items is, of course, the location of the timepiece. In this case, it's Singapore. People know that a lot of the buyers on Chrono 24 hold prejudices against items based in certain countries. But at the end of the day, all the protections that Chrono 24 offers are intact here. So if you don't necessarily mind that this comes without the original box, without the original papers, this is a great deal. They have the suggest a price option as well if you want to give it a shot and place another offer. In either case, this all goes to show you that this can be considered a great deal on a smaller sized Royal Oak in year 2022. Of course, these were practically half this price just a few years back. And by the way, the watch maybe doesn't come with the original papers, but in this case, it comes with an archival extract from Audemars Piguet. So, you know, what else would you need to authenticate? Now, our second option, again, comes in the 36 millimeter case and has once more a dial design that is very much asymmetric. Oh, Rohit, hi, Jade and Aussie Expat. Both of you are absolutely welcome to the channel as well. The first reference I showed was 25920, 25920 ST annual calendar. These were produced actually in very limited number around, let me just go back, 25920 ST annual calendar, 36 millimeter case. So you are getting the medium sized, not the jumbo. You are getting a quirky design, which I think, again, is actually a great a great argument for this particular watch, because if you actually like it, and if you actually make use of the function that it comes with, the complication that it comes with, you won't feel like you're settling for a lesser example. Of course, the fact that this is in steel and that it comes with the blue dial, with the famous tapisserie design, still makes it quite desirable and pulls the price up to 35K in US dollars and above. The next one that I'm going to show is also a medium-sized Royal Oak, 36 millimeter case, dual time, reference number 25730 in steel with the blue dial. This time, as you can see, it's the Petite Tapisserie design with the small hobnails rather than the waffles, let's put it this way. You have, again, a two-hander, right? The power reserve indicator, the date, and the second time zone. right? The dial condition is not the best. You can see the effects of the corrosion. I don't necessarily mind the rest of the patina. I think these older Audemars Piguet Royal Oak dials age quite beautifully, uh, but I'm not one of those collectors who is necessarily enamored with humidity or water damage. This dial seems to be like that, and I think that's why the price is even closer to 30K in this case. But this was still overall the best example I could find in my search on Chrono 24. So I wanted to share this with you for you to have a general idea. The dual time function, again, is very useful. You have all the elements of the original design in a medium-sized case, the integrated look, uh, but a watch, again, that has its own character, that has its own functionality, and that has its own design elements on the dial, where you might be able to feel that you are not settling simply for a lesser example of the Royal Oak. So I think this is once more a great alternative uh, if you like the particular design, if you have also fallen in love with this horological icon, um, and ultimately, even this, of course, is arriving at us with quite a salty price tag, almost 32K in US dollars. This is reference 25,730 in steel, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak dual time with power reserve indicator on the dial. Um, and in this case, again, the original box is not present, but the watch comes with original papers. The next example is another mid-sized Royal Oak, and in this case, we're talking about the two-tone example that was probably worn in the last few decades by Prince Michael of Kent. If you know the particular gentleman, you will recognize the watch on his wrist almost immediately. The watch has been ever present with him for the longest time. Miles Long, welcome to the channel. Um, Rohit says, thanks. These are indeed good deals in this current crazy market. Yes, that's why I wanted to start with all those caveats. Of course, we are still talking about a segment of luxury watches that are priced well out of range for most people. But for those who aspire and for those who are seeking an alternative option to the more desirable Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbos or any of the Royal Oak Chronos, these could be, I think, very serviceable as alternatives. And as Rohit says, the smaller cases, the older 36 millimeters and the newer 37 millimeters, because of the design elements, because of the integrated look, and because of all the care and attention and handwork that goes into finishing them in this contrast of polished and satin surfaces, have a presence that may make them seem bigger than they are, larger. They were larger than they're noted on paper. So this next example is actually what I exactly meant when I talked about how those older Royal Oak dials age, right? This is a properly patinated cobalt blue Royal Oak dial on 14790 SA. which is the mid-sized two-tone model. Some of you might remember that the Pontiff Archie Luxury had one of these in all steel. I'm sure you have heard all the stories and the service charges and whatever. I won't get into those in this broadcast, but this is also in this market again a very attractive alternative to those Royal Oak models that are trending at 2 or 3 times retail, and those Royal Oak models that are also not available to most of us at retail to begin with. So you have a 3-hander with date. You have, of course, the 18-karat gold bezel on top of that case, petite tapisserie, cobalt blue dial that has aged into this slate gray color, quite beautiful. The date indicator itself has patinated beautifully. And of course, if you ask me, Royal Oak is one of the most beautiful executions of the two-tone look in the way those tapering intermediate links contrast with the rest of the steel integrated bracelet. This is actually a great watch. As Rohit was saying in the chat, it actually doesn't wear all that small at all. I'm gonna show you a picture of Prince Michael of Kent wearing this watch, and you will probably agree with me that it's not really a small watch. It has a lot of presence of its own. In the meantime, while I'm searching this, I also want to drop a little piece of information, since we're talking about aristocracy and so forth. As it turns out, the then Shah of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, was the first one to place an order for a Royal Oak because he had seen one of the previews of the prototypes, and apparently he placed an order before they were even released. He wanted his to be executed in white gold, paradoxically, but he also ordered apparently a few pieces in steel for the rest of his entourage. So that is a little piece of history, as we have just recently celebrated the 50th birthday of the Royal Oak. I'm having a hard time finding this picture, so I hope you can indulge me. Yes, now I did. Okay. So here is Prince Michael of Kent wearing that very watch. Yes, guys, thank you, Jimmy. Welcome. Please upvote and support. It really helps me gain exposure. It helps me get all the more closer to my first major goal on YouTube, which is to reach 1,000 subscribers. So please help me out with your upvotes, and please spread the word about the channel. Mathis, legend, welcome back to the channel. So here's Prince Michael of Kent wearing that 14790 in two-tone, 14790 SA. And I think he's at least 6 feet, if not taller. So he's not really a smaller gentleman either. And here he is, suited and booted, and wearing this beautiful hybrid of a sports and dress watch, and it fits well. It certainly goes with the entire ensemble. It's quirky enough for for him. As you see, the guy wears his ties with like a whole onion-sized knot. So he's certainly someone who can pull something like this off quite easily. But when it comes to the size and proportions of the watch, it's certainly not discreet or not too small. So this is, of course, comparatively again, this presents a good deal right around 25K, 26 even. I'm sure it can be found slightly cheaper. Of course, this particularly hurts me because once again, it was one of those deals that I passed on just 4 or 5 years ago, when you could easily find these right around 5,000 US dollars. And look at it now. But of course, that doesn't change the kind of value they hold in today's market, which we will see how they stabilize, right? I think by and large, I'm not really expecting a severe downturn unless we are facing a much larger economic crisis, which of course no one would wish for. But of course, particularly hyped up models and designs such as the Patek Philippe sports watches, like the Nautilus, like the Aquanaut, like the Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks, those might face at some point a sharper downturn than just losing 10 or 15%. So take that or note that as another caveat, that no matter how these might seem like relatively great deals as we speak, perhaps it's not the best time to invest in these watches. But again, considering how the Royal Oak picked up and really reached its prime value after the celebration of the 40th anniversary, with all these hype surrounding especially luxury sports watches, in the short term, I can only see them going up after the celebration of the 50th anniversary. And Audemars Piguet is pushing really, really hard with all the celebrity endorsements, with all the marketing that they have been pushing on social media through traditional channels. So it is what it is. And finally, actually, I have a bonus that I wanted to share, which is actually a Royal Oak Offshore, one of the earlier models. This is a Royal Oak Offshore triple calendar, a model that was produced in, again, mid-90s, so relatively early in the history of the Royal Oak Offshore. This is a 38 millimeter case, so slightly larger than the mid-sized Royal Oaks that we were considering a second ago. And quite frankly, the reason it appealed to me is because it has aesthetics that are more akin to complicated Royal Oaks than Royal Oak Offshore, or than the models that we came to recognize as Royal Oak Offshore, Royal Oak Offshore these days. So there we go. That petite tapisserie dial, day, month, date, all around the outer track of the dial. We still have abbreviated index markers filled with luminous material, the iconic hour and minute hands and seconds on the subdial. I think this is also a beautiful design. Uh, and again, it has certain elements, of course, that make it look uh, like an offshore, but by and large, um, to my eyes at least, uh, this is a good compromise between the classic design of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak and the more, uh, the bolder, maybe more contemporary and more in your face uh, design language of the Royal Oak Offshore. I think this is a compromise that I could at least personally live with. I actually like the dimensions uh, that outer date track adds uh, to the watch and to the overall design. And as you see, this being a 38 millimeter case, it wears a little larger. Um, the bracelet is, in terms of the finishing, a little less exciting to me, but that's only a small drawback. You can see the pushers here for making the necessary uh, manipulations for the triple calendar. Overall, I think this is also a wonderful piece of design, uh, preserving the elements of the original that make it so recognizable, that making such a classic, that make it such an icon. But again, um, quirky enough, uh, characterful enough that you wouldn't feel like you are settling for anything less. Sorry about that. There we go. Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Triple Calendar, and that's reference 25807 ST, executed in all stainless steel. Guys, I dropped the link for the Royal Oak 50th anniversary video that I prepared. It's a very short 8-minute narrative video, so I highly recommend that you watch it. It contains the more significant and exciting elements of the Royal Oak origin story. I would appreciate it if you would watch that video as well and drop an upvote there. Um, Same goes for this. I already appreciate your support and presence here, that you are here, that you contribute to the channel from the chat, that you ah, technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience. I'm back. I was just saying, I'm so grateful for your presence. If you have not upvoted yet, please upvote. I'm also gonna drop the link, so maybe one or two of you guys want to join me and talk about uh, the Royal Oak and the models and the reference points that I brought up that still present good value in the secondary market. But in either case, I really appreciate your presence. I really appreciate your support, all the questions you ask, all the positive things that you say from the chat. Those encourage me a great deal. If you spread the word and help me get to 1,000 subscribers sooner than later, I would really appreciate that too. But in either case, I'm patient. I'm willing to put in the work and build everything brick by brick. I want to repeat, I put in the link for the Royal Oak narrative video that I prepared earlier. It's an 8-minute short video that includes all the important and exciting details of the origin story. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So check that out and drop an upvote if you like it. In either case, again, if you would like me to produce new and original content, please consider a PayPal donation at lordhellespontv@gmail.com, lordhellespontv@gmail.com. And that is also my primary point of contact. If you want to ask me a question, if you want to reach out to me in any way, that's where you should write. And I would, if you attach to it a small donation, I would happily do a personalized video for you, whether it is about the history of a brand, about the genealogy of a particular model, or maybe you want my help and guidance in your next purchase in the secondary market, or in terms of pinpointing a particular contemporary model at retail, or perhaps you want me to review your collection in the form of an interview where we can dedicate an entire live stream and have you as a guest on the channel. I would genuinely appreciate that if you would reach out to me and ask me any questions. Rohit, I've heard from friends in the hobby that AP service costs are astronomically high for even simple Royal Oak time-only models. A myth or true? It's not exactly a myth. A lot of these bigger brands, now that they have realized that the restoration and refurbishing can make them almost as much money as selling these watches to their authorized dealers, they have become quite stingy with original parts. They have become quite protective, jealously protective of servicing their own watches, and they charge a premium oftentimes. And that's especially true for brands like Patek, Audemars Piguet, and to a certain extent, Vacheron Constantin, Rolex, Jaeger-LeCoultre. You know, we can count them and enumerate them the entire day. But you have to look at it as really, you know, it's like owning a vintage car, right? You can't just think that, oh, I've gotten a good deal on this car, and I'm gonna run it for a couple of years, and when it breaks down, I might not have the funds to get it serviced or get it restored, and it will basically become junk, right? So you have to really look at it. When you invest in a luxury timepiece, you are kind of making a lifelong investment, right? Or in the short term or in the midterm, maybe you'll be looking for a way out. So I think you should really figure some of these servicing costs into your budget when you're buying a watch like this. Bear Clooney, please upvote and subscribe. Lord deserves it. I appreciate you so much, Bear. I love you. You're my big brother, and I'm really grateful for all the help. Thomas Höja, I'm guessing you are from Scandinavia. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. Meatball is here, one day at a time. Absolutely. Big George, my new friend from last night. He has just seen my shorter Royal Oak video. Thank you so much. He joined us for a conversation, for a beautiful conversation last night. So I really appreciate him. And Gentleman Chunkster, Chunk, one of the original subscribers of this channel, he says, I heard the Chrono is the real killer in terms of the cost. Do you know if that's also the case for AP? Absolutely. Look, the more complicated the watches get, the more expensive servicing them gets as well. There's a reason why, to this day, most people with their eyes closed still go for Rolex, because still Rolex has the most extensive service network. Still, any watchmaker, any watchmaker worth his salt could service a Rolex watch. The movements are very typical, robust and reliable, but often not too complicated. And you are saving a lot of money and headache over long term when you buy a Rolex watch. And remember again, you know, Royal Oak contains a lot of elements of this brutal industrial design, but at the end of the day, it is, especially in the extra thin models, it is a very delicate and elegant watch. So it has an aspect that slants towards being a dress watch. So even though it's designed as an all day, everyday wearer, it's not going to take that wear as well as the run-of-the-mill Rolex sports watch does. So again, that has to be part of the consideration when you are buying an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo or any similar model, and the service costs over mid to long term have to figure somehow into the budget as well, no matter how good of a deal it is that you're getting. And of course, the more complicated the watch, the more expensive it would be to service, especially if you're sending it back to the maker. And I'm not even talking about the insufferable wait times that you would be quoted with. Gentleman Chunkster says, I just got a quote for my Deep Sea, and it was around 800, same as an ETA Panerai I had serviced, pleasantly surprised. Yeah, you see, that's one of the reasons that people prefer Rolex till this day. Big George, New York. George, they're beefy. A good comparison is Rolex is like a Toyota Land Cruiser. AP is like Land Rover. Lovely analogy. Lovely analogy. It's perfect. I'm not going to say much more. Guys, we're closing now. Tim Wright Show is starting in about 10 minutes, so I will see most of you there. Please don't forget to upvote on the way out. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support me, please consider a PayPal donation to lordhellespontv@gmail.com. But in either case, please spread the word and help me reach 1,000 subscribers. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you so much. I will see you soon at the Archie Luxury channel, and hopefully before that at the Tim Wright channel. Bye.